The stars look different out here. Commander Jake Morrison stared through the observation deck window of the USS Horizon as the ship drifted through space near Kepler 442. 3 years they had been traveling to reach this distant system. 3 years of sleeping in cryopods and eating recycled food. 3 years away from Earth and everyone he knew. "Commander, we're picking up something strange," called Lisa Grant from the science station. Her voice carried across the bridge with excitement. Lisa had been studying space signals for 15 years, but she had never heard anything like this before. Jake walked over to her station. The screen showed waves of energy pulsing in patterns that looked almost like music. "What am I looking at?" "It's a signal, sir, but not natural. Something is making this." Lisa pointed to the data scrolling across her screen. The patterns repeat. Every 47 seconds. "No star or planet makes signals like this." Ryan Brooks looked up from his weapons station. The tactical officer had been quiet during most of their journey, but now his eyes were alert. "Could be a trap. Pirates use fake signals to lure ships." "Not out here," Jake said. "We're too far from any trade routes. Nobody comes this far from home except us." He studied the signal pattern. Something about it seemed familiar, like a song he had heard long ago, but couldn't remember. Katie Walsh floated up from the engine room through the access shaft. The engineer's jumpsuit was covered in grease, and her red hair was tied back in a messy ponytail. "I heard we found something interesting. My engines are running perfectly if you want to go take a look." Jake nodded. "Plot a course toward the signal source, but keep our weapons ready and shields up." The USS Horizon was not a warship. She was built for exploration, with laboratories and living quarters for long journeys. But Jake had insisted on defensive weapons before they left Earth. Space was dangerous, and humans had learned to be careful after losing 3 colony ships to unknown threats. As they got closer to the signal source, their sensors began picking up something massive. The object was hidden behind a small moon, but it was clearly artificial. Metal and energy readings suggested a ship, but it was unlike anything humans had ever built. "Size estimate?" Jake asked. "About 3 times larger than us," Ryan reported. "But the design is weird. Looks more like a floating fortress than a spaceship." Lisa was studying the alien vessel through their telescopes. "Commander, I'm seeing movement. Things are coming out of the big ship." On the main screen, smaller craft emerged from the alien vessel. They moved in perfect formation like soldiers marching in a parade. Each ship looked heavily armored with thick metal plating and weapon ports along the sides. "They've seen us," Ryan said. "Those ships are heading our way." Jake felt his heart beating faster. This was it. First contact with an alien species. Every human dreamed of this moment, but now that it was happening, Jake felt more fear than excitement. Humans had always been alone in the universe. Now they weren't. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. "All frequencies." The alien ship stopped about 1,000 kilometers away. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the communication system crackled to life. The voice that came through was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. The words were in a language no human had ever heard, but somehow Jake could understand them. The aliens were using some kind of translation device. Small dash ships dash from dash unknown dash place. You travel in the void between stars. This shows strength. We would speak with you. Jake stepped forward. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of the human exploration vessel USS Horizon. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship." A long pause followed. Then the alien voice spoke again. "Peace is a concept for the weak. We are Vorthek. We survive because we are strong. You will come aboard our ship, so we may see what manner of beings you are." Lisa looked worried. "Sir, should we trust them?" "We don't have much choice," Jake replied. "If they wanted to destroy us, they probably could have already." Within an hour, Jake found himself in a shuttle with Lisa and Ryan, flying toward the alien ship. The Vorthak vessel was even more impressive up close. Its hull was covered in thick armor plating and weapons that could destroy their entire ship pointed out in all directions. The docking bay was huge and filled with strange machinery. As their shuttle landed, Jake could see alien figures waiting. For them, the Vorthak were massive creatures standing nearly 3 meters tall. Their bodies were covered in natural armor that looked like the shell of a giant crab. 6 arms extended from their torso, each ending in clawed hands. Their heads were dominated by large red eyes and mandibles that clicked when they spoke. The largest Vorthak stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like thunder. "I am Krugneth, war leader of this fleet. You are smaller than we expected, yet you cross the great dark between stars. How do such fragile beings survive in the void?" Jake tried to stand tall despite feeling tiny next to the alien. "We build ships and work together. Our technology protects us from the dangers of space." Krugneth's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "Technology can be taken or destroyed. Only strength of body and will allows true survival. Your world must be very gentle to produce such soft creatures." "Our world is not gentle," Lisa said, stepping forward. "Earth has volcanoes, earthquakes, storms that can destroy cities, and predators that hunt in packs. Humans survived by being smart and working together." The alien leader studied them with his red eyes. "Interesting. You claim to be from a death world, yet you appear weak. We too come from a world of constant danger. Grenthal has gravity that would crush most beings. Storms of acid rain and ground that shakes every day. Only the strongest Vorthak live to adulthood." For the next several hours, the two species exchanged information about their worlds and cultures. Jake learned that the Vorthak had conquered dozens of star systems, always through superior force. They respected only strength and saw mercy as weakness. The problem started when a young human officer named Alex Turner was examining Vorthak artifacts in their museum area. He reached out to touch what looked like a beautiful crystal sculpture. The moment his fingers made contact, the crystal began glowing with intense light. Every Vorthak in the room froze. Then Krugneth let out a roar that shook the walls. "You have touched the sacred flame of VOR. Only those deemed worthy by combat trial may approach the holy relic." Alex backed away, his face pale. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. It was just sitting there and it looked beautiful, but the damage was done." Other Vorthak warriors had gathered, their claws extended and mandibles clicking angrily. Krugneth's red eyes burned with fury. "This is desecration. Your ignorant touch has polluted our most sacred artifact. This insult cannot stand." Jake stepped between Alex and the angry aliens. "It was an accident. He meant no disrespect. Surely we can find a way to make this right." Krugneth studied the human commander. "You speak of making things right, yet you show no understanding of honor. In our culture, such violation demands blood payment. However, you are guests and ignorant of our ways. We offer you a choice." The alien leader's voice became formal and threatening. "Submit your species to Vorthak rule, and we will teach you proper respect for strength. Refuse, and we will determine through combat which of our peoples deserves to inherit the stars. You have one rotation of your ship to decide." As the humans were escorted back to their shuttle, Jake realized that first contact had become something much more dangerous. Two species from Deathworlds had met among the stars, and now only one might survive. The emergency meeting room on Earth was crowded with worried faces. Admiral Helen Carter sat at the head of the long table, reading the report from the USS Horizon for the third time. The words did not get any better with repetition. "So let me understand this correctly," she said, looking up at the gathered officers and scientists. "Commander Morrison has made contact with an alien species that considers our entire civilization weak and wants us to surrender or fight to the death." General Frank Davis nodded grimly. The old soldier had fought in 3 wars on Earth, but nothing had prepared him for this. "The message came through hyperspace communication 2 days ago. The aliens gave us 1 month to respond. Either we submit to their rule, or they come to destroy us." Dr. Nathan Pierce stood up from his chair. The xenobiologist had been studying the data about the Vorthak since the message arrived. His usually neat appearance was disheveled, and his eyes were red from lack of sleep. "Admiral, I have been analyzing everything we know about these creatures. They are not like anything we imagined aliens might be. Their homeworld has 3 times Earth's gravity. Their atmosphere is filled with chemicals that would kill a human in minutes. The planet has constant earthquakes and storms that would destroy our strongest buildings. Helen leaned forward. What does that tell us about fighting them? Each individual Vorthek is incredibly strong and tough. Their natural armor can probably stop bullets. They have 6 arms, so they can use multiple weapons at once. But there is something else. Nathan pulled up images on the wall screen. Look at their ship designs. The room studied the pictures of Vorthek vessels. Every ship looked like a flying castle, covered in thick armor and bristling with weapons. They build everything for direct assault, Nathan continued. Their military formations are very organized but also very predictable. They expect enemies to meet them in open battle. Captain Maria Santos raised her hand. She commanded one of Earth's fastest scout ships. Admiral, request permission to take my ship and observe their preparations. If they are coming to attack, U.S., we need to know how many ships they have and what weapons they carry. Helen nodded. Approved. Take a small team and stay hidden. We need intelligence about their capabilities. General Davis was studying tactical displays on his tablet. Admiral, we have a serious problem. Earth Defense Force has 200 ships. Most are patrol vessels and cargo haulers. We have maybe 50 ships that could fight in a real battle. If these aliens have been conquering star systems for years, they probably have thousands of ships. The room fell silent. Everyone knew Earth's military was designed to fight pirates and deal with minor threats. They had never expected to face an alien invasion. What about our weapons? Asked Colonel Lisa. Murphy, Earth's best starfighter pilot. How do our ships compare to theirs? Nathan shook his head. From what we can tell, Vorthak weapons are more powerful than ours. Their shields are stronger. Their ships are bigger and tougher. In a direct fight, we would lose badly. Helen Carter had been listening to everything without speaking. Now she stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth's capital city. Millions of people lived down there, going about their daily lives. They had no idea that an alien army was coming to destroy everything they had ever known. General Davis, she said without turning around, in your military experience, what happens when a small force faces a much larger and stronger enemy? Frank? Davis smiled for the first time since the meeting began. You don't fight them on their terms, Admiral? You change the rules of the game. 3 days later, Captain Maria Santos was floating in space in a specially modified stealth suit. Her ship, the Quicksilver, was hidden behind an asteroid while she and her team observed the Vorthek staging area. What she saw made her stomach turn cold. The alien fleet was enormous. Hundreds of massive warships floated in formation around a captured planet. Each ship was at least 5 times larger than Earth's biggest warship. Weapons that could destroy cities pointed out from every hull. Ben, are you getting readings on their firepower? She whispered into her radio. Ben Hughes, her demolitions expert, was studying the energy signatures from the alien weapons. Maria, one of those big ships could probably destroy our entire defense fleet by itself. They have plasma cannons that make our weapons look like toys. Claire Robinson was monitoring Vorthek communications from her position near their command ship. The communications specialist had learned some of their language during the past few days. Captain, I'm hearing something interesting. They keep talking about formations and battle plans, but everything sounds very formal and structured. What do you mean? Maria asked. It's like they follow a book of rules for how to fight. Ship A goes here, ship B goes there, weapons fire. In this pattern, no creativity or changes to the plan. Maria filed that information away. It might be important later. She continued watching the alien fleet for another 2 hours, counting ships and studying their movements. Everything Claire had said was correct. The Vorthak moved like a giant machine, following predetermined patterns. When she returned to Earth, Maria's report confirmed everyone's worst fears. The Vorthak had over 800 ships preparing for attack. Their technology was superior to human equipment in every way. In a traditional battle, humanity would be destroyed in less than a day. Admiral Carter called another emergency meeting. This time she had invited some unusual guests. Along with the military officers and scientists, the room now contained engineers, computer programmers, miners, and even a few people who had spent time in prison. "Ladies and gentlemen," Helen began, "we cannot win a normal war against the Vorthak, so we are not going to fight a normal war." She activated the wall display showing a map of the solar system. "The aliens expect us to meet them in space with our fleet in battle formation. Instead, we are going to make them fight on our terms." "General?" Davis stood up and pointed to various locations on the map. "We will hide our ships in asteroid belts, behind moons, and near space stations. When they come looking for a fleet battle, they will find empty space." Dr. Nathan Pierce added, "Our analysis shows that Vorthak psychology values direct confrontation. They become frustrated and make mistakes when enemies refuse to fight normally." Troy Patterson, a young computer programmer, raised his hand nervously. "Admiral, I have been studying the data from their ships. Their computer systems are very advanced but also very rigid. If we could get a virus into their network, we might be able to disrupt their communications." Helen smiled. "That's exactly the kind of thinking we need. The Vorthak are stronger than us, but they have weaknesses. They are predictable, they follow rules, they expect their enemies to be like them." Carol Adams, one of Earth's best ship designers, stood up. "Admiral, what if we built ships that are completely different from what they expect? Small, fast ships that can hit and run instead of standing and fighting? How quickly could you design and build them?" Helen asked. "Give me 2 weeks in every shipyard in the system, and I can have 50 attack craft ready. They won't be pretty and they won't have much armor, but they will be fast and hard to catch." Helen looked around the room at the mix of military officers, scientists, engineers, and misfits. This was humanity's greatest strength. When faced with an impossible problem, humans found creative solutions. "We have 3 weeks before the Vorthak arrive," she announced. "We are going to use every advantage we have. Speed, creativity, unpredictability, and our knowledge of this solar system. We cannot match their strength, so we will fight with our intelligence." As the meeting broke up, people hurried off to begin their preparations. Admiral Carter remained in the room, staring at the star map. Somewhere out there, an alien fleet was coming to destroy her species. They had superior numbers, better weapons, and stronger ships, but they had never fought humans before. They had no idea what they were about to face. The Vorthak war fleet arrived at the edge of human space like a storm of metal and fire. War Chieftain Throckvell stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Bone Crusher, watching the sensor displays with satisfaction. 800 ships filled the void around him, each one a masterpiece of destruction. "Report," he growled to his second-in-command. "War Chieftain, we have entered the human star system. Our sensors detect no fleet waiting to meet us. The cowards must be hiding near their home planet." Throckvell's mandibles clicked with amusement. As expected, the weak always cower when faced with true strength. Set course for the third planet. We will destroy their pathetic fleet and then claim the system for the Vorthak Empire. The massive alien fleet began moving toward Earth in perfect formation. Every ship maintained exact position and speed. Their approach was like a giant spear, thrust straight at humanity's heart, but someone was watching them. Captain Steve Mitchell floated in his tiny attack craft, the Wasp, hidden behind a chunk of asteroid debris. His ship was so small that Vorthak sensors could not detect it among the space rocks. Steve had been waiting here for 2 days, eating energy bars and drinking recycled water. "This is Wasp's all units," he whispered into his radio. "The big fish are swimming into our net. Confirm positions." One by one, 49 other voices answered. Each pilot was hidden in a different location throughout the asteroid belt. Their ships were ugly things, built for speed rather than looks. Carol Adams had kept her promise, creating attack craft that could outrun anything the Vorthak flew. "Remember the plan," Steve continued. "We are not here to win a fight. We are here to make them angry and lead them where we want them to go." The Vorthak fleet reached the outer edge of the asteroid belt. Throckvell studied the field of floating rocks with suspicion. His species had conquered many worlds, but they usually fought in open space where their superior firepower could be used effectively. "War Chieftain," reported his sensor officer, "the asteroid field extends for millions of kilometers." "It will slow our advance, then we go around it," Throckvell decided. "Order the fleet to take the long route. We do not need to hide among rocks like scavengers." That was exactly what Steve Mitchell had hoped they would do. "All units, execute Mosquito." "Pattern Alpha," he ordered. The human attack craft burst from their hiding places like angry wasps. They came from every direction, firing their small weapons at the giant Vorthak ships. The plasma bolts barely scratched the alien armor, but they got attention. "Enemy contact," shouted a Vorthak officer. Small attack craft, bearing multiple vectors. Throckvell watched the tiny human ships dancing around his fleet. Their weapons were pathetic, but they were incredibly fast. Every time his gunners tried to target one, it would disappear behind an asteroid or accelerate away at impossible speed. "Destroy them," he ordered. The Vorthak ships began firing their massive weapons at the human craft. Plasma beams that could melt mountains reached out across space. But hitting a small, fast target with a big gun was like trying to swat flies with a hammer. Steve Mitchell's ship spun and twisted between the deadly beams. His engine was pushed to maximum power as he led a group of Vorthak destroyers deeper into the asteroid field. Behind him, other human pilots were doing the same thing. "Come on, you ugly monsters," Steve muttered. "Chase me into the rocks where your big ships can't maneuver." The Vorthak formation began to break apart as individual ships pursued the annoying human fighters. This was against their normal tactics, but the pilots had never faced such an elusive enemy before. Lieutenant Commander Paul Wright watched from his position near Proxima Station. He commanded a team of engineers who had spent weeks preparing the asteroid field for this moment. Hidden among the rocks were hundreds of modified mining charges and gravity manipulation devices. "Paul to all demolition teams," he said calmly. "Target acquisition confirmed. Begin activation sequence." Throughout the asteroid field, hidden explosives began to arm themselves. The devices were not powerful enough to destroy Vorthak ships, but they could do something much more useful. They could move asteroids. As Vorthak ships chased human fighters deeper into the field, the space around them began to change. Asteroids that had been floating peacefully suddenly accelerated into new positions. Rocks the size of buildings crashed into alien hulls. Navigation became a nightmare as the entire field shifted and moved. "What is happening?" Throckvell demanded. "Why are the asteroids moving?" His science officer studied the sensor readings. "War Chieftain, the humans have somehow weaponized the asteroid field. They are using explosives to alter the orbital patterns." The Vorthak fleet found itself trapped in a maze of floating debris. Their perfect formation was destroyed as ships struggled to avoid collisions. The rigid battle plan that had worked on 100 worlds was useless in this chaotic environment. That was when the real attack began. Commander Amy Foster led her team of boarding specialists in EVA suits through the confusion. While Vorthak ships were distracted by dodging asteroids and chasing fighters, small groups of humans in spacesuits approached the alien vessels from their blind spots. "Team Alpha is in position," Amy reported as she attached magnetic charges to the hull of a Vorthak cruiser, beginning hull breach. Her team used specialized cutting tools to slice through the alien armor. Within minutes, they had created openings large enough for people to enter. The Vorthak had never faced boarding parties before. Their ships were designed to fight other ships, not infiltrators creeping through their corridors. Captain Don Sullivan led another boarding team into a different Vorthak ship. His mission was not to capture the vessel, but to plant a special surprise. Troy Patterson had created a computer virus specifically designed to attack Vorthak systems. "Package delivered," Don reported as he connected the virus device to an alien. "Computer terminal. Recommend immediate withdrawal." Throughout the asteroid field, similar scenes played out. Human boarding parties struck at disabled or distracted Vorthak ships. planting explosives and computer viruses before disappearing back into space. The climax came when Colonel Lisa Murphy received her final orders from Admiral Carter. "Lisa, you know what you need to do?" Helen's voice crackled over the radio. Lisa looked at her ship, the Phoenix. It was one of Earth's few remaining heavy cruisers, and it was about to become a weapon. She had volunteered for this mission, knowing she would not survive it. "Roger, Admiral. Beginning final approach." The Phoenix accelerated directly toward the Vorthak flagship. Throckvell saw the human ship coming and ordered all weapons to fire at it. Plasma beams tore through the Phoenix's armor, but Lisa kept flying straight at the bone crusher. "For Earth!" she shouted as her ship smashed into the alien flagship's command section. The explosion lit up the entire asteroid field. But hidden in the blast was something more dangerous than the destruction itself. Troy Patterson's masterpiece virus spread from the hidden device into the Vorthak flagship's computer network. Within minutes, navigation systems throughout the alien fleet began to malfunction. Ships that relied on precise computer control found themselves flying blind. The virus spread from ship to ship through their communication network, creating chaos in the Vorthak formation. Throckvell stood on his damaged bridge, watching his perfect fleet fall apart. Half his ships were lost in the asteroid field. Others were dead in space with failed engines. The remaining vessels were scattered and confused. "War Chieftain," his communication officer reported, "we are receiving surrender." Demands from the human fleet. "What human fleet?" Throckvell roared. "We have seen nothing but small attack craft." On his main screen appeared the image of Admiral Helen Carter, broadcasting from Earth. "War Chieftain Throckvell, this is Admiral Carter of the Human Defense Force. Your fleet is defeated. We offer you the opportunity to withdraw from our space and return to your own territory." Throckvell stared at the small human female. "You have not defeated us. You have used tricks and deception. When we regroup, we will crush you completely," Helen smiled sadly. "War Chieftain, you came here expecting to fight ships? Instead, you fought a solar system. Every asteroid, every space station, every piece of debris was turned into a weapon against you. This is our home, and we know every rock in it." As if to prove her point, more human ships began appearing from hiding places throughout the system. They had been there all along, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. The battle was over, but Throckvell knew the war was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the battle in the asteroid field. The war between humans and Vorthak had spread across dozens of star systems. What started as a single fleet action had become something much bigger and more terrible. War Chieftain. Throckvell stood in the ruins of what used to be a human colony on Kepler Prime. His massive form was silhouetted against burning buildings. The attack had been successful, but it had taken 3 days to capture a settlement that should have fallen in 3 hours. "Report," he growled to his field commander. "War Chieftain, the colony is ours. But the humans evacuated most of their people before we arrived. We found only a few thousand civilians, mostly elderly and sick, who could not travel." Throckvell's mandibles clicked with frustration. This was the same story on every world they attacked. The humans seemed to know where the Vorthak would strike, before the aliens themselves had decided. Somehow, the weak creatures had turned their scattered settlements into an advantage. What about their resistance fighters? Still active, War Chieftain? They hide in the forests and mountains. Our patrols find empty camps and exploded supply depots. The humans strike and then disappear like ghosts. Throckvell walked through the abandoned streets of the colony. The humans had left behind empty buildings but taken everything useful. They had even removed the power generators and water purification systems. It was as if an entire civilization had simply melted away. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Greg Coleman was helping load the last transport ship at Haven Colony. The evacuation had been going on for 2 weeks, ever since long-range scouts reported Vorthak ships heading toward their system. "That's the last of the medical supplies," reported Dr. Sandra White as her team finished loading the cargo hold. "The hospital equipment is on Transport 7, Greg nodded. He had overseen the evacuation of 12 colonies in the past 4 months. Each time it got a little easier. Humans were becoming very good at abandoning their homes and starting over. Somewhere else. "Captain," called Julie Kim from the communications station. "Message from Admiral Carter. The Vorthak fleet is 2 days out. We need to be gone in 6 hours. Understood. Signal all transports to begin departure sequence." Greg looked around at the empty colony one last time. Thousands of people had lived here, building farms and schools and shops. Now it would become another Vorthak prize. If they could figure out how to make it work without the people who built it. Major Julie Kim had a different job. While others evacuated civilians, she organized the people who stayed behind. Her resistance network had volunteers on every world the Vorthak threatened. They were not soldiers, just ordinary people who refused to run. "The power station charges are set," reported Bob Turner, a former electrician who had become an expert at demolition. "When they try to restore electricity, the whole grid will overload." "Good," Julie said. "What about the water treatment plant?" "Sarah and her team have that covered. The Vorthak will get water, but it will taste terrible and give them stomach problems. Nothing deadly, just very unpleasant." Julie smiled. Humans had learned that you didn't need to kill your enemies to make their lives miserable. The Vorthak were conquerors, but they had never learned how to govern people who didn't want to be governed. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Ellen Rodriguez was making a discovery that would change everything. She had been studying captured Vorthak technology for months, trying to understand how their ships and weapons worked. "Admiral, you need to see this," she called excitedly to Helen Carter, who was visiting the research facility. Ellen led Helen to a laboratory filled with alien devices. On the main table was a partially disassembled Vorthak power cell, its crystal components glowing with soft blue light. "What am I looking at?" Helen asked. "The key to everything," Ellen replied. "This is a Vorthak energy crystal. Every one of their ships uses hundreds of these for power. But look at this." She pointed to markings on the crystal's surface. "These are not artificial. These crystals are grown, not manufactured." Helen studied the strange markings. They looked almost like tree rings or the growth patterns of a living organism. "Where do they come from? That's what's interesting." "According to the data we captured from their ships, all these crystals come from one place, the Vorthak homeworld of Grenthal. They have massive crystal farms and underground caverns." Ellen activated a holographic display showing the Vorthak supply network. Lines of light connected their homeworld to dozens of conquered systems. "Admiral, they are completely dependent on these crystals. Without them, their ships can't function. Their weapons won't fire. Even their life support systems need crystal power." Helen began to understand the implications. "So if we could disrupt their supply lines, we could cripple their entire fleet." Ellen finished. "But there's something else. Look at these energy readings from recent crystal shipments." The display showed declining power outputs over the past several years. Each new shipment of crystals was weaker than the last. "Their homeworld is running out of power," Ellen said quietly. "The crystals are getting smaller and weaker. At this rate, they will be completely exhausted within 50 years. Helen stared at the data in shock. "They're not expanding because they're strong. They're expanding because they're desperate." Commander Roy Jackson received his orders 3 days later. His mission was simple in concept but nearly impossible to execute. Take a small fleet deep into Vorthak space and attack their supply convoys. "Sir, this is basically a suicide mission," pointed out his second-in-command, Lieutenant Linda Scott. "We'll be outnumbered 1,000 to 1, Roy nodded. "That's why we're not going to fight fair. Carol Adams has modified our ships with captured Vorthak technology. From a distance, we should look like one of their patrol fleets. The disguised human ships left Earth under cover of darkness. With them traveled Carl Baker, a heavy weapons specialist, and a dozen other volunteers who knew they might never come home. 2 weeks later, they found their target. A massive Vorthak convoy was moving crystal shipments from their homeworld to the front lines. 50 cargo ships escorted by 20 warships carried enough crystals to power the alien fleet for months. Remember, Roy said to his crew as they approached the convoy, we're Vorthic patrol ships responding to reports of human raiders in the area. We'll get close, plant our charges, and get out before they realize what happened. The plan worked perfectly until Carl Baker made his discovery. Commander, he called from the captured Vorthic cargo ship he was sabotaging, you need to see this. Roy found Carl standing in the cargo hold, staring at containers of crystals. But these were not the glowing blue energy sources they expected. These crystals were dim and cracked, barely producing any light at all. These are almost dead, Carl said. Look at the shipping labels. These are supposed to be premium-grade power crystals, but they're practically worthless. Roy studied the alien writing on the containers. Using translation software, he began to understand what they were seeing. Carl, these aren't the good crystals. These are the last crystals. Look at this manifest. This shipment is marked as emergency. Reserves from deep mining operations. They completed their sabotage mission, but Roy's mind was racing with new possibilities. When they returned to Earth, he brought with him information that would shock the human leadership. Admiral Carter listened to Roy's report in stunned silence. Dr. Ellen Rodriguez confirmed what the commander had discovered. The Vorthak homeworld was not just running low on crystals, it was dying. The planet's core is cooling, Ellen explained. The crystal caves are collapsing, the toxic atmosphere is getting worse. According to this data, Grenthal will be uninhabitable within 20 years. General Frank Davis leaned back in his chair. So they're not trying to conquer the galaxy for glory. They're looking for a new home. Helen Carter stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Earth's blue skies and green forests looked peaceful and beautiful. Somewhere across the galaxy, an entire species was watching their world die. That changes everything, she said softly. We're not fighting conquerors, we're fighting refugees. The war had taken on a completely different meaning. The Vorthak were not evil invaders seeking to dominate weaker species. They were desperate. Survivors fighting for the only thing that mattered to any living creature, the chance to continue existing, but that knowledge made them more dangerous, not less. A species with nothing to lose would fight to the very end. The final battle began at the Vega system, where both fleets had gathered for what everyone believed would be the end of the war. War Chieftain Throckvel commanded the last great Vorthak armada, 400 ships, all that remained of their mighty empire, formed up for one desperate assault on Earth. Admiral Jake Morrison, now promoted after his successful diplomatic mission, watched the alien fleet approach from the bridge of his flagship, the New Horizon. The human fleet was smaller, but filled with ships designed by hard experience. Every vessel had been built or modified for the kind of unconventional warfare that humans had perfected. Admiral, reported Commander Rachel Park from the tactical station, Vorthak fleet is maintaining standard attack formation. They're heading straight for us. Jake nodded. After 2 years of war, he understood how the Vorthak thought. They valued honor and direct confrontation above all else. Even facing extinction, they would not change their ways. Signal all ships to begin Operation Final Call. Jake ordered. Throughout the human fleet, a strange thing began to happen. Instead of preparing for battle, every ship started broadcasting on all communication frequencies. But they were not sending threats or demands for surrender. They were sending information. Captain Susan Bailey commanded the small diplomatic vessel Peacemaker. Her ship was unarmed and unarmored, designed only for communication and negotiation, as plasma beams from Vorthak weapons lit up space around her. She flew directly toward the enemy flagship. This is Captain Bailey of the Human Diplomatic Corps, she broadcast to the Vorthak fleet. We have information about your homeworld that your leaders have not shared with you. On the bridge of the Bone Crusher, Throckvel watched the tiny human ship approaching through the battle. His weapons officer was tracking the vessel, ready to destroy it with a single shot. War Chieftain, should we eliminate the diplomatic ship? No. Throckvel growled. Let them speak their lies. It will not change the outcome of this battle. But other Vorthak ships were listening to the human broadcasts. The messages were not in the formal military language that Vorthak officers used. They were translated into the common dialect that ordinary soldiers and workers spoke. "Attention Vorthak fleet," came the voice of Dr. Nathan Pierce from Earth. "Your homeworld of Grenthal is dying. The crystal mines are exhausted. The atmosphere is becoming more toxic each year. Your government has not told you that the planet will be uninhabitable within 20 years. Sub-Chieftain Vorthak commanded a squadron of Vorthak destroyers. He had been born on a mining station far from the homeworld and had never seen Grenthal's crystal caverns. But his family still lived there, working in the deep mines. Communications officer, he ordered quietly, confirm those broadcasts. What do our own records say about crystal production? The answer shocked him. Production had been declining for decades. The crystals being shipped to the fleet were weaker and smaller than those used by previous generations. His own family had been moved to deeper and more dangerous mining levels as the surface deposits were exhausted throughout the Vorthak fleet. Similar conversations were taking place. Ship commanders who had never questioned their orders were suddenly confronted with information their government had hidden from them. "War Chieftain," reported Throckvell's communication officer. "Some of our ships are requesting clarification about the human claims." "Ignore them," Throckvell roared. "We fight for the honor of the Vorthak. The weak deserve extinction, not sympathy." But the human broadcasts continued. Admiral Carter's voice reached every ship in both fleets. "People of the Vorthak Empire, we do not seek your destruction. We offer you something your leaders have never considered: cooperation. Human scientists have studied your dying world. We believe it can be saved." The battle that followed was unlike anything either species had experienced before. Some Vorthak ships continued fighting, following their war chieftain's orders to destroy the human fleet, but others began to slow their advance, uncertain about their mission. Kevin Rogers, now promoted to admiral after his successful tactical analyses, coordinated the human response. His ships used hit-and-run tactics to avoid the Vorthak vessels that were still fighting while protecting those that had stopped shooting. "Admiral Morrison," reported Rachel Park, "approximately 30% of the Vorthak fleet has ceased offensive operations. They're not retreating, but they're not attacking either." Jake watched the confused battle unfolding around him. This was not the total victory or glorious defeat that either side had expected. It was something messier and more human. A negotiation conducted with weapons fire. The turning point came when Captain Bailey successfully docked with the Vorthak flagship. She carried with her Dr. Nathan Pierce and Mark Thompson, Earth's leading expert on planetary restoration. Under heavy guard, they were brought before War Chieftain Tajroke-Vel. The old Vorthak warrior looked tired. His natural armor was scarred from 100 battles, and his red eyes had lost some of their fire. He studied the 3 small humans who had risked their lives to reach him. "You claim you can save our homeworld," he said, his voice like grinding stone. "Why would you help those who have tried to destroy you?" Dr. Pierce stepped forward. "Because destroying your people won't solve the real problem. Your species will die whether we win this battle or not. But if we work together, both our peoples can survive." Mark Thompson activated a portable holographic display. Images of Grenthal appeared, showing the dying crystal caverns and toxic storms, but then the display changed, showing computer models of what the planet could become. "We can teach you atmospheric processing techniques that will clean your air. We can help you develop artificial crystal growth systems. We can show you how to build underground cities that will protect your people while the planet heals." Throckvell stared at the images of a restored Grenthal. Green areas appeared where toxic wastelands had been. Clean water flowed where poisoned rivers had run. It was beautiful, but it was also humiliating. "You ask us to accept charity from those we considered weak," he said bitterly. "We're not offering charity," Bailey replied. "We're offering partnership. Your people are strong and resilient. Your technology has capabilities ours lacks. Together, we can accomplish things neither species could do alone." Outside the flagship, the battle was winding down. Sub-Chieftain Vorthgak had convinced 3 other squadron commanders to stop fighting. Their ships formed a defensive circle around the human diplomatic vessel, protecting it from Vorthak loyalists who wanted to continue the war. The final moment came when Thrakvel had to choose between the pride of his species and their survival. Around him, his own officers were divided. Some demanded that he fight to the end, preserving Vorthak honor even in defeat. Others begged him to consider the human offer. "War chieftain," said his eldest lieutenant, "my children live on Grenthal. If there is a chance to save them." Thrakvel closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed. The fury was gone, replaced by weary acceptance. "Signal all Vorthak ships," he ordered. "Cease fire. We will discuss terms." The war did not end with a surrender or a victory. It ended with the most difficult thing any warrior could do, admitting that fighting was not always the answer. 5 years later, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of New Grenthal Station, watching construction crews work on the planet's surface below. Human and Vorthak workers labored side by side, building atmospheric processors and underground cities. Vo Arth-GAK, now wearing the insignia of a human Vorthak Joint Engineering Corps, joined him at the window. "It is strange," the alien said in heavily accented English. "My people spent 1,000 years conquering worlds. But this world, built by cooperation, is better than anything we ever captured." Jake smiled. "My species learned something important during our war with yours. The strongest civilizations are not those that destroy their enemies, but those that turn enemies into friends. On the planet below, Vorthak children played in parks where toxic storms once raged. Human families lived in cities built with Vorthak engineering that could withstand any natural disaster. 2 Deathworld species had met among the stars, and both had survived by becoming something new. The old Vorthak Empire was gone, its rigid hierarchy replaced by a loose confederation of worlds, where humans and aliens worked as equals. The human species had also changed, no longer isolated on Earth but spread across the galaxy as teachers, engineers, and diplomats. War-Chieftain Thrakvel had been wrong about one thing. When 2 Deathworld species met, only one had survived. But that one was not human or Vorthak. It was something that had never existed before, a civilization built on the idea that strength came not from conquest, but from cooperation. In the end, the greatest victory was not destroying an enemy, but discovering that there had never been an enemy at all. There had only been 2 lost civilizations, waiting to find each other among the stars.